The Queen Mary is a retired British ocean liner that is now a popular tourist spot docked in Long Beach Harbor, California. But what was it before? As we take a look at the history of this amazing vessel, can you begin to imagine yourself on her deck, looking out to the vast Atlantic Ocean? Britain did not want to fall behind in the shipbuilding area, so two companies set out to build luxury liners to compete with what the Germans had already produced. White Star Lines began construction on an 80,000-ton ship they were calling the Oceanic in 1928. The other company, Cunard, began building their 75,000-ton ship on December 1st, 1930. They didn't have a name for this ship, so they simply referred to it as Hull Number 534. By December 1931, construction on both ships had stopped because of the Great Depression. Cunard applied for a loan with the British government so they could finish Hull 534. The loan was approved for enough money to finish the ship and build a running mate. But there was one condition: that Cunard and White Star would have to merge into one entity. Both companies had agreed to this, and the merge was completed on May 10, 1934. Construction began immediately and took 3.5 years to complete at a cost of £3.5 million sterling, or $17.5 million at the time. By today's economy, that would cost nearly $400 million. But why was she named the Queen Mary? In keeping with the company's tradition, her name was originally to be Victoria. It is said that the company representatives went to see King George V to ask permission to name the ship after Britain's greatest queen, to which he replied, "My wife, Mary of Teck, would be delighted." The company felt they had no choice but to report that hull number 534 was now to be called the Queen Mary. Her maiden voyage was on May 27, 1936. She arrived in New York Harbor on June 1st. With a top speed of 32.84 knots, she was the fastest ship to traverse the Atlantic Ocean in 1936, but lost the title in 1937, only to regain it from 1938 to 1952. From 1936 to late August 1939, the RMS Queen Mary was the belle of the ball as far as luxury liners went. But it all changed by September 1st of that year. Before the ship had arrived in New York Harbor on that day, war was declared by the British, and the Queen Mary was forced to remain in port until further notice. In March of 1940, when Allied commanders decided to utilize its size and speed as a troop ship, the Queen Mary was removed of all its luxuries, given a complete coat of gray paint, and retrofitted with protection from mines. She was able to transport 15,000 troops at one time and often went without escort. The Queen Mary was able to outrun most German U-boats. It was during this time that the Queen Mary was also known by another name, the Grey Ghost. Tragedy struck, however, when the Queen Mary accidentally sank the cruiser HMS Curacoa on October 2, 1942. They were advised not to stop under any circumstances and sliced right through the ship. 239 lives were ultimately lost. After World War II, the Queen Mary resumed its role as a passenger ship until she retired from service in 1967. Her final crossing of the Atlantic on September 27th of that year culminated in her 1,001st trip across the ocean. In total, the Queen Mary traveled 3,792,227 miles and carried a total of 2,112,000 passengers. October 31st, 1967 was her last journey to where she sits today. 1,093 passengers and 806 crew took a trip around Cape Horn and arrived in Long Beach on December 9th of that year. Aside from the sunken cruiser, there have been at least 47 deaths reported on the Queen Mary, and it is said that it is haunted by over 100 spirits. We are setting a course to review what is reported as one of the 10 most haunted locations in the world. it couldn't be a better season finale than to find out if this place is really haunted or if we dropped anchor on a hoax.